And we're back. Everybody.
Okay. Wow, that was tough.
It's not an easy conversation to navigate, especially as a privileged white male.
You know what helps? Yeah. You know what helps is knowing nobody's actually really watching our YouTube channel.
Yeah, it does help on that.
So it's like no one's gonna see this anyway. I'm not
Front
racist.
page of Reddit.
Yeah. Look at these idiots.
Yeah.
These privileged
Try to
racists.
talk about. Hey, we talk very kindly, and I think in a politically correct manner.
I sure hope so.
I hope so too.
I hope, yeah.
It's not an easy conversation to have.
It's not, no. But yeah.
You know,
I'm glad you did it.
We're morally.
I'm glad we're done that. Now we can just talk about, like, whatever. Like, other stuff.
Yeah.
I guess. Which, again, privileged, but, you know, fuck. I mean, I'm sorry.
I've already spent a large portion of my day following things and spreading information and getting educated, so
how have you been? Otherwise,
it feels like the world is burning down around me, and I'm like, hey, my life's doing okay right now. Pre-COVID, I was like, this is tough, man. I'm drained and I don't have all the money I need to do shit. But now, post-COVID, well, no, I mean, we're still mid-COVID. Although everyone seems to have forgotten COVID's still a thing, I feel like.
Yeah.
Let's protest because they're obviously angry and people are needing a way to show it.
See, you know what? Like, if the people
back to it always.
If the people that were protesting against COVID showed up for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that,
maybe you should do a worthy thing. Yeah. Yeah. So I shared this on my Insta story, and then we can move on. But I share on my Insta story. It's like all the people that were like, making us stay at home for a pandemic is against our freedom, are now saying like, yeah, you should follow the curfew. It's for your own good, you know. Like, shut the fuck up. Anyways, we're gonna talk about some other things. We're talking about Bruce Lee.
Okay, we'll talk about Bruce Lee. So
Rest
that was one of my revelations that I had that I've said probably about 20 times in the last like 5 days.
And you confused the hell out of me on Twitter.
Yeah, see, like, and that's the point. So, like, you know, everybody that like knows or is a fan of Bruce Lee knows the classic quote, like, be like water.
Be like water.
You put water into a glass, it becomes the glass. And all that stuff. Everybody knows that quote, obviously, but
yeah, I like your impression, dude.
Yeah. But that comes from a show that he was in, Longstreet. That was like an old school show.
Yeah.
And he's training this dude, and then after the water quote, he says some other stuff that I don't really hear people talk about too much. And then I'm trying to see if I can remember it because I tried to memorize it because I just thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
But he's like everyone else, you want to learn the way to win, but never to accept the way to lose. Mm-hmm. And he's like, to accept defeat, to die, is to be liberated from it. And so he's like, you have to free your ambitious mind and learn the art of dying. And so when I heard that the first time, I'm like, what does that mean? Like, on the one hand, I get it. Like, you know, when
I don't know if I fully grasp it. Stuff.
Yeah, like wasn't exactly sure. I'm like, okay, let me think about this. Like, so, you know, Gary Vee talks about loving losing. I'm like, I'm sure it has something to do with that. I understand that. If you suck at something, I suck at drawing. If I just draw and suck and lose and die, you know, like drawing, I just suck. Eventually, I'll get better, right? I'll get better, and that's part of it. You know, like failing forward. I'm sure that's part of it, but I felt like there was something more. Like there had to be something more. It's like deeper than that. And I was like, okay, like, you know how samurai always I don't know, not contemplate. They meditated on like dying and their deaths. I'm like, okay, I think that's closer. That sounds closer, right? Like that's why they were more prepared in battle. And then there was accumulation of things. Like one was I was watching The Last Dance, with Michael Jordan and like the Bulls and stuff.
Yeah.
And then
I heard it's really good.
It is very good. And then my sister talking about, you know, when she does performative dance and all that stuff, and she was saying how she emphasizes a lot of like no, I've fucked up on stage. Like when I'm performing on stage, like I fucked up, dropped my props and like fell on my face in front of people. And that's, I think, when it kind of clicked, was like you have to be ready. Like when he means learn the art of dying and freeing your ambitious mind is like in the same way, you know, fighting is like everybody wants to, like when they take a fight or whatever, or they will learn fighting, like they're in their mind is winning. I'm going to knock that guy out. I'm going to be the champion.
Yeah. But
they're not ready to accept the possibility of them losing and getting knocked out. Mm-hmm. And so what Bruce, I think, is saying, Bruce on a first name basis, Bruce here, you know Bruce. I don't. People
I
make
call
fun
him
of
Lee.
people make fun of me when I call like Gary V just Gary. They're like, "Oh, your first name basis." Yeah, my girlfriend's laughing over there on the side. But you know what Bruce is saying, good old Brucey, is that instead of dying like in real life necessarily, he means more dying like public, or like, at least that's how you would apply it now, is dying publicly, like being embarrassed, like being knocked out. Like you wouldn't die, but like in front of everybody, you get knocked the fuck out. Like that's what you fear the most.
Yeah.
Right. And in the same way, like I was saying before, in a couple posts and stuff, is that when you care so much about something, like you and I care so much about being artists, if I draw something and it sucks, it hurts. That's a death to me because I care so much about drawing. And which is why I can post the other content of like personal training and like motivational stuff or whatever, because like I don't care. Like to me that doesn't count as a death because I don't care about being a motivational speaker and I don't care about being a personal trainer at all. So I can post tons of content of motivational, personal training, all that stuff, because it doesn't feel like a death to me because I don't care, right? But he's saying, you know, especially in fighting, like a samurai, right? Like be like dying is like that pure, like you have to make moves knowing that the possibility is you could win, but you could also lose and die. And so, you know, going back to The Last Dance, is like you think about Michael Jordan and you think about Gary Vee as well, is like they both enjoy gambling. I don't know if the Gary Vee followers know that. He doesn't talk about it much, but Gary Vee's mentioned that like he doesn't gamble because it's too fun. Like when he does gamble, it gets too hectic because he loves it too much. Because they're both so confident with betting on themselves. But it's because they're also fully accepting that, you know, when you gamble on yourself, you could lose, right? Yeah. Like Michael Jordan, last second of the game, pass me the ball. Right? Like the last second, everything on the line, last second of the game, Michael Jordan says, pass me the ball. And that's betting in the riskiest, like the highest stakes situations, betting on yourself, which could result in him like, and I'm sure there's tons of games.
So he looks dumb in front of a bunch of people.
Exactly. Like there's tons of games where I'm sure he's actually missed, or like anybody who had the ball for the last second, they've missed. But you had to have accepted that possibility when you got the ball. Like the same way that when he like sunk the shot and he made it, you had to accept both possibilities. Same way when you're like, when I think about boxing or something, when I'm throwing that combo in, I have to fully accept that I could get knocked out. Like I could have made the completely wrong move. I could be outplayed completely. Like I come in with a 1-2, he just dodges all of it and smashes me in the face. I have to accept that possibility. But that allows me, accepting that and being okay with that, allows me to move forward and execute that move with the confidence and, you know, whatever, decisiveness that I need. Right? Is accepting both. It's another one's like dancing. Right? Is like when you first think of like a dance move or whatever, like you could just be really embarrassing. Like, what is he doing? Like, what is that? What is this arm thing? You know, like, whereas, or they could be like, wow, this guy is actually really good at dancing. Because dancing is like moving the body in a like very unnatural kind of weird looking way. Right? Another example is like comedian, right? Comedians have to learn that. Like you have to step on stage, make a joke that's like gonna fall. Like it could be the worst joke. They're like, wow, this guy, they could just complete failure and embarrassment. Like, wow, this guy is like, no, like crickets. And then they also judge you and be like, wow, this guy's like racist or like sexist or he's something.
You're not even funny.
Yeah, like this guy's not funny, and it's just completely like backlash on you, and they can just bomb. And they have to go through that because they're trying to find the line of like, okay, where can I go and where it's funny? But you have to be fully accepting that like the crowd's gonna be like crickets, like I don't know about this guy. Or like really get like a backlash, like a bad reaction to that. You have to be fully ready for that because that's where also the best jokes come from, is where you like toe that line, where you're right on the line of like, you know, almost being that, but you're not, because they get you, and then it's just the funniest joke ever, right? Like Louis C.K. is a good one, right? Where it's like he's found, especially because he builds context for himself, and I know now it's bad because of what we found out about him and all that stuff, but you know, because he's played with that line and there's context for him. Like, he can come out on stage and just say, like, abortion, which, you know, any normal comedian, you know, you hear that they come out and say that as the first word, you'd be like, I don't know where this is going.
I have never seen a comedian, like a white comedian, like, come out and say probably the 3 worst words you can say. I'm not going to say them.
Okay.
There's a whole stand-up bit, and it was... like, aside from what Louis C.K. is now, like, back then I was like, that was, like, a really good bit. Because he was able to kind of dissect the the reason why those words are bad, but he's saying them on stage.
Yeah.
He's saying like
Yeah.
the N-word and other things like that.
Yeah.
But it's not in a way that's like derogatory. It was in a way that his setup and everything was very carefully executed so that it didn't seem offensive.
Yeah.
And you'd think that would be what gets him on the news and like in trouble, but
No.
I guess the way he did it was like more tactful and classy.
Yeah.
Than like it being kind of any vitriol behind it. But like anyways, but
yeah, I mean, the point of that is like, you know, for him to get there, I'll bring it back. Don't worry.
Exactly.
Don't worry, I'll bring it back.
I
The
lost
point,
that point, so.
It's okay. The point of it is like for him to find that he had to be fully ready for that joke to flop.
Exactly.
And so what I'm saying is like with all these, I'm thinking of all the people in my head of like people that want to do, they have these aspirations, so they think and so they say, which I actually believe they do have the aspirations to do the things that they say they want to do, but they're just not ready to take that jump. But it's because part of it is they're not fully ready to just accept that it might fail. Like it's the same reason it applies to so many things. Like if you post something and it doesn't get the reaction you want, you feel like that's a failure, and you're like, oh, I should take that down. And I should make that post better.
Exactly.
So like
or
before
I posted the wrong time. I would have got more likes if I posted earlier.
Yeah. So then before they post, they put so much effort into like not failing.
A lot of times they don't post.
Yeah, like and well, I mean that's the worst, right? Is they end up not posting, but they put so much effort into that post or whatever it is they're doing, to the point where like they end up just not even trying because it's just too much. Like I can't, you know, which is like me, right? This is why I don't draw, because it's too important to me that like if I draw and it sucks, you know. Whereas like, you know, when I like my classic thing about social media, which I can get into as well, which I always talk about, which you know is getting ridiculous because I talk about it all the time. But it's just, this is where the yelling comes in, where it's just kind of like, come on, just do it. Like, so for example, I was talking to a buddy of mine. It's funny because like, so he has all the camera equipment. You already know who I'm talking about, like in a second. He has all the camera equipment, all the resources, whatever, and I think he does have the aspirations to like, you know, because he's a big Gary Vee follower as well. And then he's asking me like, oh, like he sent me a video like about TikTok, and he's like, oh, is this a video? Like, can you use the tools on TikTok to make this video? And I'm like, bro, you don't need to know how this guy that you thought made a really great video, how he made the video for you to make your own stuff. Like, you can just make your own stuff. Like, if you actually tried to use the app, you would have known, or you would figure it out and you'd find your own style. Like, you don't need to strategize and think about all this stuff to be able to make your own content. Just make your own content. Just make it. Yeah. But you're just too afraid to put it out, right? Like, so many people are just too... It's the posting part. Like, so many people... Like, he's got tons of content or whatever that he's made, and then I'm sure, like, recorded and all that stuff, but it's not out there. Like, he hasn't put it out, which is that point of, like, dying, which I'm saying is embarrassing, public shame, and all that stuff. Like, you're too afraid of that. And I've talked to, like, so many people about this. It's the same argument or like same thing that they feel. Like, they'll start with like, I'm just not that kind of person, I'm not that whatever. But that's the same thing of like, if you care and you want to do something about anything, like I was saying, my example, I don't know why this is my example all the time, but if I wanted to get really nice cool anime hair in high school, but it's weird because having crazy anime hair in high school, you're gonna get judged for it because it's fucking weird anime hair, right? But if that's what I wanted, you know, what everybody would say is like, no, you should just do it. You should just be yourself, and which is true, right? Like that, I'm sure everybody agrees. Like, I shouldn't feel like I have to suppress my love of anime hair and not do it because people are gonna judge me. You should just go live your life and not give a fuck because you know why you're doing it, and you know what I mean. And so in the same token is like posting and doing stuff like that, like people are afraid to post because they're afraid of the public. Like, they're going to think I'm this type of person. Like, I think about that too. Every time I post, I'm like, oh, people are going to think that I'm this type of person. Yeah, you know, they're going to judge me. He's a coach. Yeah, like I'm going to put out one video about kickboxing and they're going to think that I'm fucking a kickboxing. I think that I'm a kickboxing guru or some shit. It's like, no, I don't think that. And I don't want to, like, I feel like I'm backtrack. Like, you know, when someone was like, oh, you're like Jay Shetty. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be a motivation. I have nothing against Jay Shetty, but I don't want to be a motivational speaker. I don't know who that is, but yeah, he's a motivational speaker, kind of, right? Hit the nail on the head. That's what Curt is. Yeah, and I'm like, and I'm like, I don't want to be that. And so people are afraid of that backlash of like judgment of who they aren't, which is part of that death that they're worried about. It's like that's death, right? You're afraid of dying. You're afraid of them judging you, being misunderstood. Yeah. Whereas, like, again, like, part of the reason, like, this is like, not the caveat, but the thing to remember with social media is that you can mold whoever you want to be over like unlimited amounts of content. So what I mean by that is I can put out one video that's me kickboxing. I can put another video that's me talking about something else. I can do video games. Like you have unlimited chances to just show who you actually are, right? But I also have to be wary and ready for people to quickly just misjudge me off 1 second of seeing something. Like I'm throwing one. They see 1 second of a kickboxing video and like, oh, he thinks he's a kickboxing coach now. Ooh, like I have to be prepared for that, and people judging me off like 1 or 2 seconds of me. But I don't care, right? Like that's what I'm saying is like you have to be ready to like die in that sense. But also more importantly in life, in a bigger sense, aside from just posting, is when you're going for your aspirations. In order to like make, I always think about this like high risk, high reward, right? So all these guys like Jeff Bezos and all these like very successful people and whatever, like, yeah, like you have to make big bets to make like big gains, I guess, right? Like to win big, you have to risk big. And so when you risk big, you have to fully accept that you could lose all of it.
You could lose big,
right? And so I think going in with the knowledge that you could lose also like you're okay with it. Like you're just okay with both. Like Gary said that too. Is like someone asked him like, how are you so confident on stage? And he's like, well, because I've been through like tons of adversity. Like I remember him, he doesn't talk about this much, but he was bullied as a kid, like a little bit, like where I just remember him saying something like, oh, like these kids made him drink piss once. Like he doesn't mention it too much, but he'll talk about it sometimes when he wants to talk about adversity. Like, so he was bullied, and he's also like, I remember bombing. I think he bombed on stage once, like not like it just, I don't know, whatever. He bombed on stage once. So he's like, if it sucks and people boo me off stage, he's like, I'm okay with that. Like I don't care. Like I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? And so that's part of that, right? Is like, if you want to go big, you have to accept that you might lose big too. But that's what holds people back, is because they're like, I don't want to lose big. So I'm just not going to go big at all. Right, you know what I mean? And so
work at McDonald's.
So like when I think about that, like so for me personally, where I'm thinking like how I'm gonna apply that to my life is that I think there's moves I could be making where I can risk more and be okay with that loss in case it does happen, because I think that's where my aspirations are going. You know what I mean? It's like I could risk more, I could go bigger. You know what I mean?
For sure.
But what holds me back is that like I am sometimes afraid of like, okay, what if I do lose?
Yeah.
Like fuck, like then I lose all of it, then it was pointless kind of thing, right? But the odds are, right, is like depending on what it is. Sometimes if you like, and this is what a lot of successful people will say, right? Is they just keep risking. And it's funny. It reminds me of Fire Festival. Is that's that game that what's his name, Billy kept playing. And because at first when you're watching after Fire Festival, when he's like trying to do another scheme, you're like, bro, just stop. Like, how are you still trying to scheme people after the whole thing, Fire Festival, fell apart? But understanding this mindset, you're like, no, he's just betting again. He just wants to keep betting, right? Like Fire Festival, big gamble. Like we can do it. If it works, like if it works, it'll be the ultimate festival ever. If it pays off, big win. And then if he lost, but he's that mindset of like, no, just keep betting. Like if I keep betting, at some point, if I keep doing it, I might win. And so he goes back to scheming. And so like in that mindset, like it makes sense to me.
And then he goes to jail.
And he goes to jail, right? But that type of mindset makes sense. Like that's a negative example, obviously, of like, because his intentions are bad.
I hate to say it, but in like 5 years when he gets out, he'll probably do another one.
Exactly, right? But
he's that kind of person.
But I think like when that should apply to like your personal aspirations of like, if you want to go big, like if you want to achieve something big, you have to be ready to risk big and like bet big, which means you could lose it all also. But that doesn't mean it's guaranteed. Just because you accept the loss doesn't mean you're guaranteed the win. But I think if you can go into certain situations with that mindset, again, like when I think of the analogy of fighting, is like every time I throw a punch or whatever, I have to throw it decisively as if I'm going to win. But knowing that there's a possibility of me losing and accepting it, if I can accept that I could lose, not that I'm going to, but I could, allows me to just throw that punch just decisively, because I'm like, yeah, that's what a possibility is. Otherwise, if I'm scared of I could get countered, I'm not gonna throw the punch very decisively. And anyone who's sparred, kind of, hopefully you understand this, because I'm like that.
Yeah.
I won't throw, like, especially you see in beginners where they're like they're looking away and punching
because they're afraid of,
because they don't want to they're not throwing this punch as decisively as they could, because they're afraid of committing because they might get hit at the same time. So they're trying to do both. But clearly, this is not a very effective way to punch, right? Like,
I don't want to get hit. I want to punch you.
Right? So it's better to like just go hard in and punch hard straight in, even though there's that chance that you could get countered. And in the same way in life, I think you have to go out the same way. It's like you have to go in fully pot committed, but you know, like there's a chance that you could get countered, right? That jab walking in, like just full on force, perfect form, everything could be the exact wrong move. You know what I mean? That puts you out.
Yeah.
Right? But that doesn't mean you can't go in without like that confidence as if it's going to win. Right? But anyway, I just think about that, like especially with my life, is like
it's a good analogy.
Yeah, like in a bigger sense, when I'm going for my ambitions, I could risk more. I could risk bigger and be fully like ready for that. But a lot of people play on such a like short, they don't even risk ever.
Yeah.
You know, it's all like defense.
For sure.
You know what I mean? But I think you would be, I guess it's just because I see, like I made that post, I don't know if you saw that one with my buddy he was saying like all his friends around him, like, so he's trying to, I don't know if he's trying to be like a pro MMA fighter or anything, but he's very passionate about MMA, right? And he's trying to take off work a little bit more so he can train more. And I didn't know this, but he was saying that like only his girlfriend and me are like the only people that are like super supportive of him to do that, whereas everybody else is like, bro, why aren't you working more? Like, why are you taking work off? Like, it's just a hobby. Like, stop. You know, like, you know, because he has a kid on the way and all this stuff, and they're trying to like, I know they're well intentioned, they're good intentioned, but part of it is like, I think he's mature enough to make his own decisions. If he needs money, I've seen him, like, he'll work. Like, he can he's got like all the credentials to like get a job and work if he needs to. He can do it, and he'll do. Like, what do you think's gonna happen? He's gonna be broken. He's like, well, I guess I'll just like, no, of course.
I guess I'll fight my way to victory.
Yeah, like of course he'll do what he needs to do. So I guess it hurts when, you know, people around you are, I know they're trying to help, but they're dragging you away from the thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some people, like, they never even get to figure out what they want to do.
Yeah. Because
there's so much pressure from like their external like family and whatever. Like like we have that, like I have one friend that's like, I feel like he's stuck kind of, you know, he has the job, he wants the what do you call it, the paycheck, or like his wage, he wants his wage to be like at a certain number that's respectable, right? And then he's also gets like, you know, shamed or whatever if he doesn't work enough hours. So which means he's forced to work a job that's like not like the best job or whatever, but he doesn't care as long as the number of his wage is high enough. If it's like $17 plus, if it's like, well, if it's the higher the number, the better, right? Because like, oh, I make $25 an hour, because that's something he can say to people. Yeah, I make $25 an hour.
Yeah, I have friends like that.
And then he's forced to work full time, because if he doesn't work full time, his family will shit on him. It's like, well, why aren't you working full time? Like, what are you, just fucking lazy, kind of thing, right? But that leaves him in a space where like he's doing all this for everybody else, and he has no time for himself. Like, he doesn't get to like I don't think he really knows what he likes doing or what makes him happy or whatever, because he doesn't have enough energy. He's too much energy contending with like what they want me to do, and I should make this, and I gotta make at least, I can't make minimum wage. That's just, you know, that's death, right? Like, it's embarrassing because I only make minimum wage. I gotta make at least this much. So it's like, like it's like how, like, the further you are from minimum wage, the more respectable your job is. You know what I mean? And so he's stuck in that cycle, and then and also as a result, like, besides not having enough energy for himself, he also doesn't have enough energy to like be kind and like whatever to other people as much, or like he doesn't have enough time, like as much energy for other people, or to like do anything else, right? Because can you imagine that, right? Like, you're putting all this energy into shit that you don't even like doing, only because you feel guilty or like you feel shamed by the external forces of your family or something else, right? Yeah. And I just feel like so many people are living in those cycles.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can see it, right? Like, that's why you get like your friend that.
Okay, Curt, you can stop talking about me this way.
No,
I'm just kidding.
No, but that's where you get like your friend that makes those snarky comments about like, oh yeah, Zach, you never grew up, because he's justifying his decisions because your life is different.
Yeah.
So he's justifying his decisions by playing off your life.
Yeah.
And being like,
exactly.
well, your life is like you're just lazy, or something because I'm doing all the
yeah.
things. I checked all the boxes that I'm supposed to check off. Like I have the job and I have this and I have that. So like I'm clearly better than you because I have the all the things, right? But the only reason he did those things is so he could be that person, so he can, because he listened to everybody, and he's like, yeah, well, like it's like, we talked about this, like the only reason, I don't want to say the only reason, but a lot of the reasons why people do things is for other people, right? Like even, and I hate to say this, even like having a kid or taking a fight are the best examples that I can think off the top of my head. Is not necessarily like, obviously everybody wants kids and but like nobody reacts negatively when you say you have a kid. Nobody's like, are you sure you're ready for a kid? Nobody says that. Everybody's always like, oh my god, that's amazing, I'm so excited, right? And that's why a lot of people want to take fights at my gym, right? Like they want to take a fight so they can tell everybody around them, and people are like, oh my god, that's amazing, I'll be there cheering with my friends and wherever. Whereas like, I don't think anybody ever is like, when you're like, I'm gonna take a fight, they're like, are you sure you're ready? Nobody ever says that. It's always just positive reinforcement.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's subconsciously a big reason why I think a lot of people do anything, right? Is because they subconsciously need the validation of like, oh my god, that's amazing, I'm so excited for you. Because that feels good when everybody around you is like, oh my god, you're fighting, that's amazing, oh my god, you're fighting, that's so excited.
Like that validation,
right? Like that feels good when people say that to you. But I just don't know if that's the best way to like direct your life.
And just going back to like the thing, like that, I did have a friend say like, no, it's like you just never grew up, because I was joking around or something, I don't remember, but people are so quick to, because of the external influences, to fall into that trap of being like, I'm so old now. It's like, fuck you, you're 25, shut up, like, because they're so like, oh, at this specific age I'm supposed to be this mature and I'm not allowed to joke anymore about these things, like I'm not allowed to like video games or whatever they have in their head. I know plenty of adults that like video games, I mean we do, but I just, what I mean, like they fall into it. It's like a product of that too, like like how they think the society thinks they should be at a specific set age, whereas like you see certain people, and we're running out of time here, I know, but you see just reset it. Okay, but you see certain people that they seem youthful at the older age, and it's because they don't like care about that shit. And then people are always so jealous because like, oh, I wish I could be so like outgoing, or like you're carefree, and it's like you totally can. It's just your mindset, you're letting other people dictate how you feel like
it's the same way, like it's thinking, like exactly what you're saying is exactly about like, instead of ageism, or I don't say ageism, but that's part of it, is that like, when I talk to some of the guys at training, is like they love all the nerdy stuff, but they're like, but if you talk about it for a certain, I've talked to you about this, we talk about it for a certain amount of time, like but that's like nerdy, like whatever stuff.
It's funny that you say that, because like literally the entrance to this MMA gym is just action figures.
Well, because I feel like I pushed Achilles
to put those
there too, right? And he knows too, like it helps that we're not just a bunch of meatheads. But anyway, but like they feel they're open more now to it, but they have that idea of like, being a man means getting laid and not being nerdy, and like
exactly.
Like man,
go to the club.
This is part of why they started training, is because they're like, we do manly stuff, like train, like like wrestle and fight each other. That's manly stuff. But like games and stuff are like kid stuff. They're not like real man stuff.
Yeah,
they're, like,
exactly.
You're childish, right? But I don't. Again, like that's a societal thing that was impressed on them. That I'm sure they're maybe like bullied or made fun of or whatever, and they just believe, like they're ingrained in their head, like like that's lame, and like I should be smashing. Like they literally would say that to me. They're like, like when I should have been smashing chicks.
No, go on.
Yeah. Oh, you checked? No, we have a minute left. We have the timer on, right?
We have a minute and a half left.
Yeah, that's exactly. We timed it together. That's
okay.
Yeah, see, we can
Is
see
it exactly 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I mean, like they'll say that to me specifically of like, oh, when I should have been smashing chicks, I was playing games. I'm like, what do you mean should? Who's saying should have?
There's also
anything?
no guarantee you're smashing chicks if you're not playing games,
Well, yeah. I know. I mean, they meant. I think they meant trying to smash chicks. Like I should have been trying to smash.
And what
chicks.
if you don't? Then you just wasted your time.
Yeah. Instead of playing all these games, and it's like, bro, like, come on, like that's like it doesn't matter. Like your life is your life. There's no like. Nobody should judge you for wanting to like be who you are, you know what I mean? So like, again, I feel like that ties in to that theme of like being, and I wrote like a thing about this a while ago, is like being okay with being misunderstood, which is related to like that art of dying. It's like if you're understood for a lot of people in such a social like world, being misunderstood is social death. It's like you say something wrong and people are going to jump on it and they're going to hate you. But you have to be ready for that because your intention was never that. Like, if it was, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like most people, I mean, there's a lot of people that say things and their intentions are bad. And then I think you can pick those people out. But if you say something and your intentions are wrong, are right, then it's okay, right? Like, you just have to be ready to be misunderstood because your intentions are okay anyway.
Thank you for watching. Goodbye.